Here's something nobody tells you when you're decades away from retirement. The last 5 years before you stop working carry more weight than almost any other stretch in your entire financial life. Not because you're running out of time, but because this is when every piece of the puzzle finally has to come together. The savings, the tax strategy, the income plan, the risk management, all of it converges right here in this 5 year window. Hi, I'm Clara Morgan, and welcome back. Today, I want to walk you through something I genuinely believe every person within 5 years of retirement needs to see. We're going to go year by year, starting 5 years out and walking all the way through your first year in retirement. And I'm going to show you exactly what to focus on, what decisions need to be made, and why each year matters in its own specific way. Because here's what I've seen over and over again. People spend 30 or 40 years doing the right things, saving consistently, investing wisely, and then when they get close to the finish line, they're not sure what comes next. The strategy shifts, the mindset shifts, and if you don't know how to shift with it, you can leave a lot of security, flexibility, and peace of mind on the table. So let's start from 5 years out and build this thing together. 5 years out is where retirement transforms from an abstract concept into a real project with real stakes. Up to this point, the dominant strategy has been relatively simple: earn, save, invest, repeat. But now we move from accumulation mode into planning and positioning mode, and there are 4 non-negotiable things that need to happen in this year. Stop saying somewhere around 63 or maybe when the kids finish college. This is the year you commit to an actual date. Not a year, a month and a year. Something like, I'm retiring in March of 2030. Why does specificity matter so much? Because literally every calculation that follows depends on it. How many more months are you contributing to savings? When do your income streams begin? How long does your portfolio need to carry you before Social Security kicks in? A difference of even 2 or 3 years in your target date can shift your required portfolio size by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Once you pick a target date, you stress test it. What if the market is down 25% the year before you plan to retire? Would you still go? What if your health changes unexpectedly? The goal isn't to frighten yourself, it's to know your plan has enough cushion that circumstances don't make the decision for you. Here's where so many people get it backwards. They find a target number in a retirement calculator and work toward it without ever asking, what does my life actually cost? In year 5, you fix that. You build a real retirement budget, detailed, honest, and broken into 3 layers. Core needs: housing, groceries, utilities, health insurance premiums, transportation basics, the non-optional stuff. Lifestyle wants: travel, dining out, hobbies, entertainment, the things that make retirement feel worth it. Irregular expenses: car replacements every 8 to 10 years, home repairs, helping adult children, unexpected medical costs. These blindside retirees because they're easy to overlook in a monthly budget. Some current expenses will drop in retirement. No more commuting, no more work clothing, possibly downsizing. But other costs, especially healthcare and early retirement lifestyle spending, might go up. The first few years are often the most active and expensive because people are finally doing everything they put off. The goal isn't a perfect number. It's a realistic range you can actually trust, because once you know what your life genuinely costs, you can answer the only question that truly matters. How much annual income does my retirement actually require? With a target date in hand and a budget in hand, you can now make an honest comparison. Where are you today versus where you need to be? Ask 3 questions. Am I on track if I simply continue at my current pace? Am I fully using catch-up contributions because the IRS allows people over 50 to contribute meaningfully more to retirement accounts, and many people aren't taking full advantage? Or is my position strong enough that I could actually ease off the gas slightly? This exercise shifts retirement from something you hope will work into something you can see clearly. Some people discover they've been overly restrictive for years and have more flexibility than they realize. Others discover they need to make adjustments. Either way, having 5 years left gives you real options. That window closes faster than it feels. Here's one of the most important distinctions in all of retirement planning, and it's genuinely underappreciated. Risk tolerance is emotional, how much portfolio volatility you can handle without making panic decisions. Some people watch a 30% drop and stay completely calm. Others can't sleep. Neither is wrong. Risk capacity is mathematical, how much volatility your plan can actually absorb without derailing. You might feel comfortable being aggressive, but a significant market correction 2 years before your target date would force you to delay 3 years or slash your lifestyle. Your financial capacity for risk is lower than your emotional tolerance. In year 5, you begin shifting from maximize returns to maximize the probability of success. That's not about going ultra conservative. It's about ensuring a bad market year doesn't blow up the plan you've spent decades building. Year 5 is also when you tackle 3 categories of risk that most people have been quietly ignoring. Insurance gaps. Review your umbrella liability coverage and, critically, health coverage if you plan to retire before Medicare age 65. One serious accident or uninsured medical event can erase decades of careful saving. It's unglamorous planning, but it is foundational. Estate documents. You may be surprised how many people approaching retirement have a will from their 30s that no longer reflects their wishes, or no will at all. Power of attorney, healthcare directives, and beneficiary designations on retirement accounts and life insurance all need a fresh review. An ex-spouse listed as a beneficiary is not a hypothetical problem. It happens regularly. Year 5 is when you fix it. Debt strategy. Every dollar of required debt payment you carry into retirement is a dollar of income your portfolio must generate every single month. In year 5, you decide intentionally which debts to eliminate before retiring and which, if any, make sense to carry. Sometimes paying off debt is the best guaranteed return you can find. Sometimes a low-rate mortgage makes mathematical sense to keep. The key word is intentional. Make a deliberate choice, not a default. If retirement is a house you're building, year 5 is the foundation and the framing. You are not picking out furniture. You are making sure the structure is sound. Something shifts quietly at the 4-year mark. The central question for most of your working life was, how do I grow this money? Now it becomes, how do I use this money and how much of it will I actually keep after taxes? This is the year you stop thinking in balances and start thinking in income streams, tax brackets, and long-term strategy. In year 4, you create a complete picture of your retirement income, not just the sources, but the timing. When does each stream begin? How large is it? Is it inflation adjusted? A simple income map might look like Social Security starting at 67 at $2,400 a month, a pension beginning at retirement paying $1,100 fixed, some part-time consulting and early retirement bringing in roughly $1,500 a month for the first few years, and portfolio withdrawals filling whatever gap remains. That's a timeline, not just a number. You can see which years will put more pressure on your portfolio and which years feel more stable once all sources are running. You stop staring at a pile of money and start designing a system. Most retirees have money spread across 3 types of accounts, each taxed differently. Taxable brokerage accounts, traditional pre-tax retirement accounts like 401ks and traditional IRAs, and Roth accounts. The sequence in which you draw from those accounts can mean a difference of 6 figures in lifetime taxes for many households. In year 4, you model different withdrawal sequences. A common framework starts with taxable accounts, letting tax-deferred balances continue to grow, then blends traditional account withdrawals to stay within favorable brackets, while preserving Roth funds for the later retirement years, or for heirs. There's no single universal best order. But there is almost always a smarter approach than pulling from accounts at random, and year 4 is when you figure out what that looks like specifically for you. Say you've accumulated $1.4 million. The instinct is to look at that number with either relief or anxiety, depending on your expectations. But here's the more useful question. How much of that portfolio can I access each year without unnecessarily moving into a higher tax bracket? In retirement, you gain something most workers never have: genuine flexibility over your taxable income. You can choose which accounts to draw from, how much to convert, and how to sequence income in ways that keep your tax bill meaningfully lower. In year 4, you project what will your estimated taxable income be in each retirement year. When do required minimum distributions, currently triggered at age 73, begin layering onto your income? How does Social Security interact with your other income, since up to 85% of your benefit can become taxable depending on your combined income? Could IRMA surcharges affect your Medicare premiums in ways you haven't accounted for? In 5 years, for many disciplined savers, this is the year of reckoning. They've done everything right for 40 years, and they realize that large traditional account balances have created a future tax problem they didn't see coming. Don't just look at your tax picture today or in year 1, project it forward 15, 20, 25 years. What will your traditional 401k balance be in 15 years if you don't touch it? At what point do RMDs become a major income event? At what point do all your income sources, portfolio draws, distributions, Social Security, maybe rental income, combine to push you into brackets you weren't expecting? This is what separates reactive tax planning from proactive tax planning. When you can see future pressure building on a graph in front of you, you have options to address it. When it surprises you in year 12 of retirement, you have far fewer choices. For many pre-retirees, the vast majority of savings are in traditional accounts, simply because that's what most workplace plans offered for most of their careers. The Roth 401k has only been widely available in recent years. The question now is whether there's an opportunity to shift some of that money to the Roth side and whether the timing makes that worthwhile. For some retirees, there's a meaningful low-income window between stopping work and when Social Security begins and RMDs eventually kick in. Those years can be ideal for partial Roth conversions, paying tax now at a known rate rather than being forced to pay a potentially higher rate later when all income sources stack together. Roth conversions aren't the right move for everyone, but year 4 is when you model the scenarios and find out whether they make sense in your situation. 6. If you're retiring before Medicare, healthcare planning is critical. If you'll be retiring before 65, you need a specific healthcare plan, not a general intention to figure it out later. You may be looking at ACA marketplace coverage, a spouse's employer plan, COBRA, or retiree benefits. Each has different costs and different coverage levels. What catches many people off guard is how closely your taxable income is connected to ACA premium subsidies. Depending on how much income you generate, including from Roth conversions, you could qualify for significant subsidies or lose them entirely by crossing an income threshold. Depending on how much income you generate, including from Roth conversions, you could qualify for significant subsidies or lose them entirely by crossing an income threshold. Sometimes one additional dollar of income costs thousands in lost premium credits. Year 4 is when you understand exactly how these pieces connect, so none of this comes as a surprise. At the 3-year mark, 2 things demand your full attention: getting your Social Security strategy genuinely right and building real defenses against sequence of returns risk, the thing that quietly derails more early retirements than almost anything else. 1. Model survivor scenarios, not just the years you're both alive. If you're married, one of the most costly planning mistakes is optimizing Social Security only for the scenario where both spouses are healthy and well. That's the comfortable scenario, but it isn't the most financially critical one. The most stressful moment for most retired couples arrives when one spouse passes away and the household drops from 2 benefits to 1. Income falls substantially, but many fixed expenses, housing, utilities, insurance premiums, don't shrink with it. In year 3, you model all 3 scenarios: income when both spouses are alive, income when one benefit drops off, and realistic expenses for the surviving spouse going forward. This exercise often reveals that maximizing the larger earner's benefit, even if it means delaying their claim for several years, provides far superior lifetime household protection than both spouses claiming early. 2. Run longevity scenarios, not just averages. The national average life expectancy figure of around 78 includes people who pass away in their 40s and 50s. That pulls the number down considerably for those who make it to retirement age. A 65-year-old man today has an average remaining life expectancy of about 18 more years, age 83 on average. A 65-year-old woman is closer to 21 more years, or age 86. And those are averages. A healthy 65-year-old woman has roughly a 50% chance of living into her 90s. For men, it's about 30%. Retirement might genuinely last 25 or 30 years. Your income strategy needs to account for that real possibility, not the average. Social Security Delayed is an inflation-adjusted, government-guaranteed income stream that lasts exactly as long as you do. In a 30-year retirement, that inflation protection becomes remarkably valuable. Year 3 is when you take longevity seriously and let it shape your strategy. 3. Optimize as a household, not as individuals. For couples, Social Security isn't two separate individual decisions. It's one household strategy. The most productive question isn't when should I file, it's how do we together maximize lifetime household income while protecting whichever of us lives longer. This typically leads to a coordinated approach. One spouse files earlier to bring consistent income into the household while both are healthy and active, while the higher earner delays to maximize both the long-term monthly amount and the eventual survivor benefit. The goal is intentional coordination, not defaulting to both filing at the same age simply because it feels balanced. 4. Build a cash or bond buffer and understand your gap. Sequence of returns risk works like this. When you're withdrawing from your portfolio regularly and the market drops significantly in those early years, you're selling shares at depressed prices. You lock in losses. You reduce the number of shares available to recover when markets bounce. Repeat that a few years in a row, and your portfolio can sustain permanent damage that changes your entire retirement. The defense is a cash or near cash buffer, but sized to your income gap, not your total spending. If your household spends $6,000 a month and Social Security covers $3,800 of that, your gap is $2,200 a month, or $26,400 a year. 3 years of that gap is roughly $79,000. That's what sits in a high-yield savings account or money market fund, accessible, stable, and ready. When markets fall, you draw from this buffer instead of selling investments at the worst possible moment. Your portfolio stays invested. The buffer absorbs the short-term volatility. You stay on track. 5. Design a paycheck or bucket structure. One of the harder emotional transitions in retirement is moving from receiving a paycheck to drawing down a portfolio. Even when the numbers are completely sound, it can feel uncomfortable and anxiety-producing for people who've spent 40 years building savings. A bucket or paycheck structure helps enormously. You set up your retirement income so a consistent, predictable transfer arrives in your checking account each month, replicating the rhythm of a paycheck. Behind it is your near-term cash bucket, then a medium-term bucket of more conservative investments covering years 3 through 10, then a long-term growth bucket of equities for the later decades. This is behavioral as much as financial. Predictable income creates calmer decision-making. People don't panic sell. They don't abandon their strategy because of a difficult quarter. The system feels stable, so they let it work. 6. Decide how flexible your spending really is. Return to the retirement budget from year 5 and divide it deliberately into 2 categories. Non-negotiable essentials, housing, food, medications, insurance premiums, utilities. These don't flex regardless of what markets do. Discretionary lifestyle spending, travel, dining, hobbies, entertainment. These can flex when needed. Knowing exactly how much of your spending is adjustable lets you answer a crucial question. If markets are rough in the first 2 years of retirement, how much can I trim and for how long without affecting my fundamental quality of life? The more flexibility you've built in, the more resilient your plan becomes without needing a dramatically larger portfolio. 2 years out, something important happens. Retirement stops being a projection and becomes a plan. This is the year you translate everything you've been building into specific dollars, specific accounts, and a specific monthly income you'll actually live on. 1. Draft the first 24 months of retirement cash flow. Map out, month by month, how the first 2 years of retirement will actually function. For each month, total expected spending, guaranteed income arriving from all sources, and the portfolio withdrawal needed to cover what's left. Why 2 full years rather than an annual average? Because modeling month by month forces you to account for what annual averages miss: seasonal spending, insurance premium due dates, travel costs, holiday expenses, quarterly tax payments. It makes retirement concrete in a way that totals on a spreadsheet cannot, and it reveals the months with tighter cash flow well before they arrive. 2. Decide exactly which accounts fund which dollars. 2 years out, you're no longer saying, "I'll pull from my investments." You're saying, "In January of my first retirement year, I'll draw this specific amount from my taxable brokerage to stay within the 12% bracket. I'll delay IRA withdrawals until later in the year once I've assessed where my income is landing." This specificity is what separates a tax-efficient strategy from an arbitrary one. You're controlling taxable income deliberately, protecting any premium subsidies, managing brackets proactively, and preserving Roth balances for the later years of retirement when they'll be most valuable. 3. Build your retirement income in layers. Think of retirement income as a stack of layers, not a single number. At the base, your income floor, Social Security and any pension, guaranteed market-independent income that arrives regardless of what the market does. The next layer up, any part-time or consulting income, particularly common in the first few years for people who prefer a gradual transition. Above that, structured portfolio withdrawals, clearly defined in terms of which accounts, how much, and in what sequence. At the top, your spending flexibility buffer, your willingness to reduce discretionary spending temporarily when needed. Viewed this way, your retirement isn't a single fragile thread, it's a layered, redundant system. One difficult market year doesn't threaten everything because the lower layers are stable and the top layer provides room to adapt. 4. Decide where employer plans will live. 2 years out is when you make intentional rollover decisions. Old 401ks, current workplace plans, deferred compensation. What is the right long-term home for each? Consolidating into a single IRA often simplifies management, expands investment options, and reduces costs. But there are cases where keeping assets in a current workplace plan makes sense, particularly if you're retiring between ages 55 and 59 and a half, where a current employer's 401k may allow penalty-free withdrawals that an IRA would not. The goal isn't movement for its own sake. The goal is accounts structured to be simple, low cost, and aligned with the withdrawal strategy you've built. 5. Set up tax withholding so there are no surprises. Many new retirees are genuinely caught off guard by this. There is no automatic tax withholding on most retirement income sources. No payroll department is handling your Social Security, your IRA distributions, or your pension payments. You either request voluntary withholding on each source, or you pay quarterly estimated taxes. Skip both, and you may face a meaningful April surprise plus underpayment penalties. 2 years out, you decide exactly how this is managed. Work with a tax professional if the picture is complex. This is one of those areas where professional guidance typically pays for itself quickly. 1 year out, confidence and rehearsal. By this point, the major strategic decisions are finished. The income plan is built, the tax strategy is mapped, the accounts are positioned. This final year is about converting strategy into lived experience, making sure you're genuinely ready to inhabit this plan, not just understand it. 1. Simulate your retirement income without tapping your portfolio. 1 year out, you run a financial dress rehearsal. Using your current salary, you live on exactly what you expect your retirement income to be. Set aside the difference in a separate account as though it doesn't exist, and live on the retirement number. No calculator can replicate what this experience does. It tells you whether this income feels livable, whether the budget is realistic, where it's tight, where you have more room than you expected. If something feels off, you discover it now with 12 months to adjust, not after your last day of work. 2. Finalize automatic transfers and systems. This is the operational year. Recurring portfolio withdrawal transfers are scheduled, emergency reserves are funded and sitting in accessible accounts, all account logins are organized, two-factor authentication is set up, and income from every source is mapped to a clear arrival date. The goal is for retirement income to operate automatically and predictably, feeling as routine as a paycheck once did, rather than something you have to manage with anxiety every single month. 3. Finalize Social Security decisions and have a backup plan. Your claiming strategy should be finalized. This year, you confirm it, contact Social Security if your timeline requires advance registration, and also think through contingencies. What changes if one spouse's health shifts before your planned filing date? What if a market downturn in the early months of retirement creates unexpected cash flow pressure? How would you adapt without abandoning the core strategy? A well-built plan has flexibility baked in. Knowing your contingencies in advance means you respond to change thoughtfully rather than reactively. 4. Finalize healthcare and benefit transitions carefully. If Medicare is in your plan, enrollment timing is non-negotiable. Missing your initial enrollment period creates permanent premium penalties and potential coverage gaps that follow you for decades. Know your specific dates and act on them well in advance. If you're retiring before 65, your coverage plan should already be concrete, not a general intention. You know the cost, you know the coverage level, you know exactly what triggers each transition. 5. Finalize all separation and rollover paperwork. Pension payment elections, 401k rollover instructions, stock compensation exercise windows, deferred compensation schedules, PTO payout timing. All of this needs careful, precise execution, and all of it needs to align with the financial plan you've already built. This is not the year for new decisions. This is the execution year. Carefully, correctly, and on schedule. The first year of retirement tends to be emotionally loud, even when the finances are completely sound. Markets move. Spending patterns feel different than expected. The identity shift of leaving a career behind is real and often disorienting. All of this is normal. Financially, year one is about comparing reality to your projections. How does actual spending compare to your budget? Are taxes landing where you modeled? Is your portfolio performing within the range your plan anticipated? Some costs will be higher than you expected, others will be lower. Small adjustments are healthy and expected. What isn't useful is making large emotional portfolio decisions in response to volatility, selling investments out of fear, or overhauling your withdrawal strategy after one difficult quarter. Your plan has guardrails. The cash buffer exists for exactly this kind of period. The income layers are in place. The spending flexibility is built in. Trust the system you spent 5 years building and let it work. Retirement security doesn't come from eliminating uncertainty. Markets will always move, and life will always bring things you didn't plan for. Security comes from having a plan so thoroughly constructed that normal uncertainty doesn't threaten it. The big decisions were intentional. The risks were anticipated. The income is designed to be resilient through all of it. Conclusion. If you're sitting 5 years from retirement right now, you are in exactly the window where deliberate action produces the most powerful, lasting results. The decisions you make in this period, done well, can be worth far more than another decade of savings alone. The blueprint we walked through today isn't theoretical. These are real decisions with real, measurable financial impact. Locking in a specific retirement date, building an honest budget, mapping every income source, designing a tax strategy, protecting against sequence risk, and rehearsing retirement before you actually live it. You don't have to figure all of this out at once, but the work has to begin. And the best possible time to begin is when you still have 5 years to refine, adjust, and build genuine confidence. Here's your action step before you close this video. Open a note on your phone right now and write down the 3 retirement questions you haven't fully answered yet. Not the things you've already sorted out, the ones that are still fuzzy, still uncomfortable, still sitting on the back burner. Those are your starting points. Those are the conversations worth having. Drop one of them in the comments below. I read every single one, and your question might become the subject of a future video. If you got something useful out of this today, a like goes a long way in helping this content find people who need it. And if you know someone navigating these decisions right now, sharing this with them might be the most genuinely helpful thing you do this week. Retirement planning, tax strategy, and financial decision-making in plain language. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Take good care. I'll see you in the next one.